Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Hall Call interview series and podcast. As always, I am Will Driscoll, the Executive Director here at the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Always happy to bring you another exciting episode of Hall Call. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors who you see over my shoulders: the Beck Foundation, Priority Automotive, Davcon Inc., Centera Health Plans, White Claw Hard Seltzer, and Priority Auto Sports Radio 94.1. Without them, we would not be able to put on events or content like Hall Call and events like our 2024 induction weekend, which I don't know if you've heard, all those who have been following along with Hall Call and the podcast, but it's only 19 days away. Excuse me, I got my math wrong. It's 18 days away. And our guest today is part of this year's class that will be inducted April 20th in Henrico County, Monica Wright Rogers. You can see her on the screen joining me. She attended Forest Park High School in Woodbridge, Virginia, before starring for UVA Women's Basketball and also in the WNBA. I won't read the whole bio because it's long. There are so many accolades on there, but it does include an impressive list of accomplishments. 2006 Gatorade Player of the Year for Virginia High School, 2010 ACC Player of the Year, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and National Defensive Player of the Year, while becoming UVA's all-time leading scorer, men's and women's, in basketball. Also, Monica, a three-time WNBA champion. So with all of that said, it's easy to see why you will become a Virginia Sports Hall of Fame inductee in just less than 3 weeks. Monica, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
Will, thank you so much for having me. We are all super excited.
Well, we are, obviously, this is what we do. So we are over the moon excited about this and happy to get you here on Hall Call to give our supporters a little bit of insight into your career and what got you to this point. But we'll start with where you are right now. You are currently the assistant general manager for the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA. So following your playing days, you got into coaching. Now you're in the front office. So we know your time is very valuable because of that role. But are you in Phoenix right now, or are you on the road somewhere else?
Yes, I'm currently in Phoenix. We are actually in prep mode for the WNBA draft, which is April 15th. And so a lot of our days are filled with, a lot of planning and prep for that, watching a ton of games, ton of film, discussing a ton of college prospects.
Do you enjoy the film side of things?
Yeah, I'm used to it. I think, throughout my career as a player, then as a coach, then also working in the league office, film was always a part of my job, and being able to evaluate talent. So that part, it's really fun. But it's also, to me, it's a little, not, I don't want to say easy, but it's pretty easy. It's pretty seamless.
So, we were talking just briefly before we jumped on this, and I told you to save your answer for the interview because we were talking about the state of women's college basketball and just really women's basketball right now. Last night, we had the Elite Eight where you had two great games between Iowa and LSU and USC and UConn. It seems to really be having this moment where it is now becoming part of the national lexicon, not just a program here or there like Tennessee and UConn. It seems that the whole sport is really beginning to come into focus. What are you seeing as far as the women's game goes, and how exciting is that for somebody like yourself and the WNBA to see this next generation of talent?
Oh man, it's so much fun. It's a pleasure to watch. And, I'm someone that always thought women's basketball had talented players. And so I don't think the talent level has, increased. I just think it has evolved. And the direction it's going is just, it's really fun to see. Love seeing these young ladies getting opportunities with NIL partnerships. Love seeing them get opportunities with endorsements and commercials. I think that part really helps to just push women's basketball globally when you see things like that. So I'm excited as a front office executive and someone that watches kind of from a side. But also, I know when we get these players in-house here at our franchise, they are professionals already because of the things that they've had to deal with at that collegiate level at such a young age.
When you see a game like yesterday, like let's be real, the focal point yesterday was Iowa and LSU. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Kim Mulkey. The personalities are just endless, it seems now. When you see that being the lead story in a sporting event, and not for a championship game either, for a tournament game, how excited does that make you for the future of the women's basketball sport?
I mean, that again, though, I think the lead story is the game, is these young ladies and their talent and these coaches and their coaching abilities. Everything else is kind of just narratives around it. That's a part of the sport, even at our level, that's a part of the sport. But the number one story is and always will be their abilities, their talents, and what they bring to the game on the court.
You mentioned the global nature and how women's basketball is now becoming a global sport, much like the men's sport. We see a lot of NBA stars who are from overseas or South America, and we've seen the growth of that game over the last 20 or 30 years. Is that where you see the women's game going now, where you are going to start seeing countries that can push the U.S. for maybe a medal at an international competition here in the next decade or so?
For the women's side, it might be a little different. I think there's always been a global aspect, and so I'm not sure if you know, my job at the NBA was international basketball ops, and it was to push basketball globally to grassroots women's audiences. And so, I think the WNBA has always had a presence, an international player presence, and in certain countries, you really had great teams that would push the U.S., the women's national team. I believe, to name a few, historically, it was, to my knowledge, Russia, Brazil, and Australia. So I think those teams, may have evolved, those countries, federations may have evolved recently to where they're not, as bought in, as invested in women's basketball. But there's always been teams historically, from the women's side, that have proven to be very talented, and those players have come over and played in the WNBA.
Yeah, definitely a very exciting time for the sport, college basketball, the professional game. You mentioned that you're now in draft mode right now for the WNBA. You also, following your playing career, you also got into coaching. What's the biggest difference between the coaching side and now the front office side?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of obvious, obviously I'm not on court. My day-to-day looks totally different. I do still have touch points with players, which is fun. That's my favorite part, is just being able to interact with them. But yeah, my focus is just shifted. And so, as much as I loved coaching, that was so much fun for me to be able to pour into those young ladies directly. I do feel like I've struck like a happy medium here in the front office, where I get to eat my cake and eat it, have my cake and eat it too.
What's the point of having cake if you can't eat it, right?
Correct.
I mentioned that you starred at Forest Park High School in Woodbridge, Virginia, and you were heavily recruited coming out of high school, but you ultimately chose UVA, and you played under Hall of Fame coach Debbie Ryan, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame inductee in her own right. What drew you to Coach Ryan and the UVA program in that time when you were being recruited in 2005, 2006?
Well, you definitely Coach Ryan. She was just someone that her and I just clicked immediately. I could just tell that she really cared about her players. And, to me, that was important. And she really was able to just she could mold that age group so well. And the way she did it was, not only did she want us to be good players on the court, is she wanted us to be great individuals once we left the program and we went into the world. And so that was so important to me in my upbringing from my family. And just to meet a coach that shared that same priority, it was a no-brainer.
How did she push you over your 4 years? Because you came in and you starred. You could be considered a star pretty quickly at UVA. Three-time All-American, three-time All ACC. But how did she push you to continue to improve as a player?
I mean, it was endless. Every day, she just knew where to push, how to push us. And it wasn't just me, it was us as a group, and she would never let us settle for less than best effort. That was number one. She never let us have a bad attitude about anything. So she pushed us in a variety of ways. And I think what it did ultimately was give us, we were able to be a team. We were very cohesive as a team. And it gave us, like, I think, the ability to go out again into life and be successful, have integrity, and compete at everything that we do, whether that's, as a professional athlete, at work, as a parent, not too competitive as a parent, but just it helped us to have just that base and that foundation, to be like upstanding citizens in the world.
Well, you need to have that competitive edge as a parent because the kids need to know.
Yeah, that's fair. Exactly.
Yeah, they need to know what they're going up against. I mentioned it in the intro, and we'll continue mentioning it. We've probably been blasting it on social media, but not only were you a great scorer, but you were also a great defender. You would both sides of the ball, both ends of the court. You were elite. You could get the bucket, but you could also stop a bucket from being got. How were you able to find high levels of success on both sides of the court?
Defense was actually more natural to me. I had to really work at offense. I think my athletic ability just made me someone that could guard one-on-one, anticipate, and get steals easily. That was instinctual for me. When I got to college, I really didn't have great a shooting range per se. And so being able to develop my mid-range game, my range to the three-point line, that actually is what rounded me as a player and made me a two-way player the two-way player you're talking about. So yeah, it kind of was like opposite. It was defense first and then offense later. But that to me was what set me apart from a lot of other players, right? Who are only focused on offense or who are only focused on defense. Having both, even now as a GM, is something that I really value in the players that I select.
Are you seeing are you seeing a lot of players come into the league with that ability on both sides, or are you still seeing more players heavily focused on scoring as opposed to, and the defensive side is something that's much more developed later in their game?
You see quite a bit of a wide range. You just it's again, having a two-way player is just special. That's what I'll say.
Well, you mentioned that your range was limited when you got to college, but the numbers would suggest that you worked very, very hard on that range. 2,540 points. And for the people who will watch and also listen to this in podcast form, I made this mistake only once because I classified you as the all-time leading scorer in UVA women's basketball. And you came back pretty quickly and said, well, I believe it's 16 more points than Bryant Stitt. So you are the all-time leading scorer in
Correct that.
all UVA basketball.
Correct. Correct. Just one minor
That's right.
correction.
No, we got to make sure we get our facts right. Who was your biggest influence in helping you become that all-around player? You obviously mentioned that defense was kind of your preference to start, but then becoming that all-around player, who would you say was your biggest influence?
Well, early on, like when I got to college, I had great coaches. All of my assistant coaches and our support staff were all about getting in the gym and working hard. There was one specific coach on the men's side that I used to watch his kids. And this kid is actually in the NBA right now, Jalen Brunson. And so Jalen would come and work out with the women's basketball team and play pickup in the summer. And in turn, I would work out with Rick and Jalen will work out with me. And even Sandra, as Jalen's mom, would come and videotape the workouts. Erica would be running around in the gym. And to be honest, that made me better. I was able to get that mid-range package in a summer and a half, in 2 summers of just working out on a regular basis, and making it just like second nature. And so I give a lot of credit to those developmental, sessions with Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson, Sandra, and Erica, because, without those, who knows if my mid-range would have been as automatic and then my three-point range, may never have clicked. So that was major. And then again, all of the coaches, whenever I needed extra shots after practice, or if I wanted to get in extra film sessions before practice, we had workers on our staff. And so a lot of them went on to become head coaches or WNBA coaches in their own right. But, I give a lot of credit to them. And being a coach now, when I was a coach, I shared those same sentiments. I would get in the gym at whatever hour my players needed, to know, for them to know that they had that support.
Well, as a Temple University alum, I love hearing the name Rick Brunson.
Oh, yep.
I wish Jalen would have taken that same path.
Sandra played volleyball at Temple.
So listen, I love
Yeah.
how a Temple Owl helped you in your development. So that's good in my book. I love hearing that.
Love that.
Jalen obviously made the smart move and went to Nova and won a national title, but we won't talk about that in the Big Five. Um, Playing against who made you a better player?
Playing against playing against Tamika Catchings in the WNBA made me a better player.
Why?
She was relentless. I couldn't take a possession off. I had to be ready every time she stepped on that floor for something. So that pushed me, stretched me in a lot of ways.
Was it what obviously Tamika Catchings is a legendary name in the women's game? Was it her basketball ability, or was it something, or was it an intangible? Was she a trash talker? Was it something extra that you knew that you had to prepare for?
She didn't talk trash. It was her basketball ability because she was a counter queen. Like anything I would try to take away, she almost anticipated as quickly as I was anticipating her offensive moves. So she would counter everything, and she was so athletic, so quick that it was like a game of mental chess, and you would just be so exhausted after like 4 possessions of guarding her because you take something away and she's always looking for that next way to score or next way to get an edge up on you. And so just it made me better. Although again, just exhausted after 2 possessions, 4 possessions, but she helped me because I started copying her a little bit offensively in a lot of ways.
Obviously, you're the GM of the Phoenix Mercury, so you're going to probably say, well, your team is your favorite, but who are the players you really enjoy watching these days? Like, who are the players that get Monica Wright Rogers excited when you're watching basketball?
Oh yeah, for sure. Our team, we have like such a great core in Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, Sophie Cunningham. We have some great free agents coming in Beck Allen, Natasha Cloud, and Kalia Copper. And so, those are the players that are just, to me, just make my eyes light up because, I have firsthand knowledge of, everything that they can do. And then obviously the top players that we're watching in college as we prepare for the draft. So much fun watching those games yesterday, Iowa, LSU. So, to me, I love watching basketball. I enjoy just good talent. There's no one specific, but, biased to my own team.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to be biased to your own team. We got a few more questions before we get you out of here and let you get back to that busy and important role that you have. But we're talking a lot about basketball, but let's go back to high school a little bit. And all-around athlete is really what I'd say we could describe Monica Wright as back as a high school athlete. You were also a state champion in the 400-meter dash. How did each of those sports help you become better at the other sports? Because I asked that question because here at the Hall, we love championing the values of participating in multiple sports. Sports specialization is not something that we would put our hat on. We want kids to continue playing sports. So from your perspective, how did each of those sports help you become better at the others?
So actually, I started off as a soccer player in Prince William County. And the late Ken Krieger was one of my first coaches. I'm not sure if you his daughter, Allie Krieger, who's an Olympian and national team player. And I think that sport initially helped tremendously with coordination, with quick twitch reaction times, and with that endurance. And so from there, running track really was just a different version of soccer for me. And so I wasn't I wasn't an athlete that really thrived in a 100-meter dash type of race, but the 400 was just a race that made sense for me because of the strength and endurance that I had. And so all of that played a huge role with basketball and just, again, making me athletic and well-rounded as a whole to compete at the highest level, to, add some of those little basketball skills to my game on top of being able to have a quick first step around a defender for a one dribble layup, be able to go coast to coast and breaking a full court press single-handedly, some of the things I did in high school, wink, wink. Being able to play a post at my high school because I was one of the tallest and athletic, but I'm only 5'11" and was a guard for the rest of my career. But because of some of those, developmental habits that I got playing soccer and running track, I could guard a post. I could rebound with a post. I could, score against a post in high school. So all those things I think played a role. Also, not having my first injury until I was in my mid-20s in the WNBA, mid to late 20s in my WNBA career. all played a role, I think, in just, making sure that my body was at its best to be an elite athlete.
Well, health is always a big part of any athlete's journey. Did you know, even prior to the injury, that you wanted to get into that basketball was going to be your career, even post playing? You were going to either be coaching or in a front office capacity like you are now.
I did not. I did not. That definitely took some time, some thought, and some talking to some of my mentors. But I'm in it now, and it does feel like I could be a sports lifer. But you never know.
No, that's right. I got to keep options open just in case. But for right now, it's Phoenix Mercury all the way.
That's
A
correct.
couple more questions before we get you out of here. This year's induction is obviously going to be a big. There's going to be a big UVA contingent there. You have yourself, you have Craig Littlepage, you have Chris Long, all going in together. I mean, you just look at the work that Craig and now Carla Williams are doing at UVA, and they've built really a powerhouse overall program. How exciting is it for you to be going into the Hall of Fame with those UVA connections, those connections to Charlottesville along with you?
Oh man, it is such an honor to be just thought of in the same breath of those two. Craig Littlepage, I remember on one of my official visits, was one of the other reasons why I chose to go to UVA, is because of, his demeanor and the way he carried himself, and, kind of his leadership, and what the athletic department had done for all those years while he was in charge. And obviously Carla Williams now in charge. It's so exciting to see all the amazing things that she plans to do with the athletic department. And, I'm here to support and be a part of all of it. But just, what an honor, for someone for him with his background, to just be in the same breath as him, and obviously Super Bowl champion times 3 times 2, Chris Long. Man, like I'm a fan, and obviously we walked grounds at the same time. But he's someone that I've always been cheering for from afar, and just proud to be a UVA alum with him.
So we talked about the UVA connection, but now take that out of it. And when you hear Monica Wright Rogers, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame inductee, what does that mean to you?
That is really special to me, especially from a little girl in Woodbridge, Virginia, just playing sports and sports being my life. And Virginia doing such a great job of giving me those opportunities and leagues and outlets to express my love for sports in so many different ways. It means everything, and I just want everything in Virginia to continue to thrive in terms of sports, because like we set a precedent, and I know firsthand, and living in so many different states, that Virginia does it the right way. And so I'm very proud to be honored in this way, because I know without Virginia, I wouldn't be here.
Well, we want sports to continue to thrive in Virginia as well, because it keeps giving us classes like the class that we have going into the Hall of Fame, your fellow inductees here in just less than 3 weeks. So we know you're very busy, but we do want to take some time to thank you for taking the time to join us today on Hall Call. So thank you so much, Monica.
Thanks for having me, Will. See you soon.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who will watch this and who will also listen to this in podcast form. You can stay up to date on all things Hall of Fame and Hall Call interview series by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Our next Hall Call episode is next Tuesday, April 9th, with another fellow inductee, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, LaShawn Merritt. So be sure to stay up to date on all things. Go to our social media and our website, vasportshof.com. Once again, I am Will Driscoll with the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. The induction is just 18 days away. Whatever you do, participate, don't spectate, and we'll see you next time.